Everyone. Welcome to our webinar exploring games design and coding in education with GameMaker. I hope you're all keeping safe and well, and thank you for spending the time to come and join us on this webinar today. We're going to look at the different methods of teaching GameMaker at different stages as students progress through their education. We will also discuss the COVID support we are currently providing to all our customers. So to the agenda. We will start with a brief overview of GameMaker and then look at the approaches to teaching games design, including feedback from our teachers following a survey we did in November 2020. We will then look at the different approaches taken for different student age groups. And for each age group, we will move on to the challenges brought about by COVID and how to adjust for home learning. We will look at our approach to licensing and privacy, including the licensing support we are providing to schools during COVID. And then we'll finish up with a Q&A and how to get your free license. Before we get to the educator resources, I'd like to provide a brief overview of GameMaker Studio 2. First developed in 1999 for use in education. It's easy to use 2D game making tool. Being 2D is important for learning because it removes much of the complexity associated with 3D and allows for faster progress. Drag and drop, or D&D as we call it, for no code development. So students can firstly understand the fundamental building blocks of coding and progress to coding when they are ready, letting them progress seamlessly without hitting a wall. Custom language, GML, or GameMaker language as we call it. This JavaScript-like language is based on C and is designed to be easy to be used for games design and simple to pick up. The tool includes an image editor, a sprite editor, an object editor, and a room editor. It also now includes the sequences animation tool. Free teacher resources that teach the fundamentals of coding and help students to build their own game step by step. We have a large active community with a forum and social media and beginner tips from pros. Big studio credibility. Students can see hundreds of real games with many multi-million sellers made with GameMaker. The link here takes you to our showcase with award-winning games. The current iPad game of the year was Hyperlight Drifter, and that was made with GameMaker. Over 1,000 new users register every single day, with 90% of them being beginners. So while GameMaker is a professional tool, it is, at the same time, a foundation tool. We sent out a questionnaire to our teachers at the start of November 2020. The responses are consistent with when we asked the same questions back in 2019, with planning, individual confidence, and learning engagement all scoring more than 75% when it comes to being rated somewhat effective or better. When we asked how effective are games design lessons at teaching the following, you can see the positive results on the slide. One of the interesting things here is the student-teacher bond as well, which is great to see it over 60%. So very positive. I'm often asked what age GameMaker is taught at. Today, we're going to look at the approaches taken broadly at ages 12 to 14, 15 to 16, and 17 plus. Here's broadly how teachers approach the teaching of game design from the survey of educators who use a GameMaker. As you can see, the teaching of GameMaker is very hands-on, so it suits kinesthetic learners. This is probably why we hear that students who struggle to engage in other areas of the curriculum are much more motivated to engage with GameMaker games design lessons. I was recently talking to one of our teachers who provides alternative provision to children who have behavioral difficulties and who can't be accommodated in mainstream education. And he was saying the Space Bubbles video tutorials, which are part of the free educator materials, are at the right level for his students. There are 3 approaches to teaching that I'm going to cover in this presentation. First, in blue, is make a game step by step using video. This is an approach that solely relies on video tutorials where users build and extend games from no knowledge using drag and drop and then progress to making these games using GML code. This is more appropriate in home learning situations, out of school camps and clubs where there's no formal framework needed for learning code. The students are learning the skills in a more hands-on way, so educators may need to provide some structure to what they've learned afterwards using the educator classroom materials. This requires less educator input. Then in orange, making a game step by step with the teacher leading, where the educator provides guidance on teaching of coding to fulfill a school curriculum, and this is reinforced by step-by-step tutorials. It comes with an assessment structure and homework. This is the approach taken by our educator resources and will require the educator to run online tutorials to go through the slides. In green, we have the approach of setting a project for students to interpret. This is generally the approach we see taken with those aged 15 to 16. This is actually the most popular approach and is used in more advanced curricula, where students are required to show creativity and practical implementation of programming. For this approach, I will show you the resources that can provide guidance and inspiration. So this is how teachers evaluate the progress being made by students. Our free tutorials include fully documented teacher and peer evaluation criteria. Assessing progress can be a difficult part of home learning, and GameMaker enables easy sharing of games so educators can check on progress. In a previous survey, we got some great feedback from educators on how using game design has aided the education process at their school. The kids are happier in class. There aren't behavior problems like in other classes. Games require creatives and tech teams to work together with a common goal to solve. While they build games, they also build friendships, learn to overcome hardships, and create something meaningful. My students very much enjoy the games design units that I teach. Personally, I think the games design is effective at improving problem solving, attention to detail, and teamwork. The students have learned to solve complex and abstract problems by themselves. The content provides a sufficient challenge and helps develop persistence and attention to detail. It has certainly enabled some students who are otherwise disengaged from the curriculum to re-engage. So what about the students? What do they get out of it? What do they enjoy the most? Definitely the end where they finally tried their own game, even if it wasn't the most simple game in the world. Learning to overcome challenges and having a working program. The students love to show their parents what they have made by themselves. They're very proud of the ideas they've done and improve their skills. The feeling of accomplishment when completing a game and watching others play the games that they have built. Just being able to create an original game, then watch their peers play the game is such a high for these kids. To be able to say, I made that, is a real ego boost. Creating games, making rapid progress in a short span of time. Thinking up new games, brainstorming is normally a pain to get students to do, but not when it involves games design. Seeing their ideas take shape. Looking at different styles of teaching, at age 12 to 14, school curriculums are mainly focused on teaching students the fundamentals of coding and giving them engaging ways to enable them to put it into practice. And to this end, we created space bubbles for an education environment. There is a list of everything included in the materials. Space Bubbles is a D&D project-based scheme of work where students work on one project over the course of 8 one-hour lessons, with 30 minutes being spent on learning code and 30 minutes being spent on making the Space Bubbles game. Over these lessons, students are taught how to program by recreating their own version of the game Space Bubbles using video tutorials. Aimed at children aged 12 to 14, but can be used for older and younger, and developed by Terry Watts, who is a teacher and formerly a games designer. In a home learning environment, the lessons can be taught using Zoom, and the students can progress using the video tutorials. They are able to export their game, submit their game for evaluation by the teacher, and complete their self-assessment forms. Each lesson has its own starter project, so if a student gets stuck, they can move on. The curriculum topics covered include programming key concepts and principles, sequencing, selection statements and iteration, modeling the state and behavior of real-world problems and physical systems, making hot chocolate in homework, and it also contains teacher review, self-review, and peer review. Moving now to video tutorials, which don't require a teacher to lead. This is the first of our consumer tutorials where students can learn on their own. This game is based on the classic Asteroids game for beginners, with many of the same mechanics as Space Bubbles. It covers both drag and drop and GameMaker language, so you can make the game in D&D and then remake it in GML. This is an official tutorial made by one of our community educators, Friendly Cosmonaut. So it is a different teaching style, and it also includes an intro to GameMaker. The focus of this is to retain engagements with quick wins. You create your ship and get it moving within a few minutes before layering on additional game elements and mechanics. Space Mods builds on Space Rocks. It also has D&D and GML versions. This additional content can also support students who need more help with the Space Bubbles extension and challenge tasks, such as power-ups, enemy ships, cameras, parallax and layered backgrounds for a 3D perspective, and visual effects such as particles and screen shade. There's a nice comment here from a user who felt that they were able to start making their own modifications to their game once they have completed Space Mods. Breakthrough is a classic brick breaker game. It's taught for both GML and D&D, so try making it in D&D and then GML. Around half of all projects being worked on in GameMaker are in D&D, so there's no need to go to GML until you're ready. This is a totally different style of game, but the teaching is still at beginner level. From the age of 15 to 16, we see the school curriculum focusing more on the creative applications of coding. With project-based tutorials, you can set a theme and see how students interpret it based on a marking scheme. The scheme could include the following: interpretation of the theme, complexity or functionality used, playability, coding practice, and creativity. Here are resources for tools, artwork, audio, etc. that can be used as the basis for game creation. The Global Game Jam resource at the bottom are particularly noteworthy as they run the world's largest game jam each year, which takes place over 3 days. We also have blog articles that can provide inspiration from our team and from pro developers alike. These can fit in well with the Space Bubbles and Space Rocks tutorials. They cover a wide variety of topics from planning, creating game mechanics, how-tos, getting your game finished, and how to make your code neat, and much more. You'll never be short of inspiration and guides for how to do things on YouTube, with guides to how to do things on YouTube. Here is just a sample of games and tutorials that can be found easily on YouTube. All GameMaker Studio 2 features and settings are fully documented with examples in our online manual. One of the problems with home learning students aged 15 to 16 is that group learning and projects can be more difficult to achieve. We have official video tutorials on our tutorials page. These take you through the tools and games design techniques. Watch this space as we have more of these video tutorials coming soon. If you're looking for a more expansive set of game tutorials, this set of video tutorials start at beginner level using GameMaker language and then progress to intermediate. It also connects to the author's own video platformer tutorials on YouTube. This is Sean Spalding's platformer, which links to ours and contains a further 27 videos on YouTube. We have new education materials that we've just released. This is a more detailed GML-based game design tutorial for artists and people starting to learn games design at college or university, where you are guided on how to make a game called Little Town, an adventure playing game created by university lecturer and games designer Ben Rivers. Ben teaches games design for the Faculty of Design at OCAD in Ontario. These materials include a detailed booklet and video tutorials, which students can use to make the game in eight one-hour lessons. There are about 9 hours of videos. We also provide guidance for educators on how to teach it and how to evaluate progress. Little Town will utilize more advanced functionality within GameMaker, including our sequences animation functionality. All the licenses provided have access to sequences. For students aged 16 plus, there is also the facility for them to engage with our community for help with their projects using our forum, the GameMaker Community Forum. We have 3 types of licenses available, and these can be purchased through StudiCut. There's Educator, which contains our desktop licenses. and exports, so Windows, Mac, Linux. And then we have Educator Plus, which has the same as Educator, plus HTML5, which is our web. And we have Achiever, which contains all the licenses that we export to, all the targets we export to with GameMaker. There are 1 or 2 year options, and the seats are concurrent use licenses, so they can be used for multiple classes. GameMaker can be used on PC and Mac, not yet Chromebook, but due to the overwhelming demand from these webinars, we're definitely looking at it, and hopefully shouldn't be too long away. As can be seen from our recent survey in early November, at the time, only 5% of teachers were unaffected by COVID. As a consequence, we have provided support to our users throughout COVID. Currently, until December the 31st, 2021, all seat licenses can be used by 5 students simultaneously. So 30 seats used in a computer lab can be used simultaneously by 150 students at home. Hopefully, we won't need to extend beyond December because the world will be a safer place. But we will look at this nearer the time and see if the measures need to be extended again. Privacy in education. The teacher acts as a seat manager. They receive 1 perpetual educator desktop seat that they can use to investigate and set up. The seats are entirely anonymous, including the usernames and passwords, which are randomly generated, so no PII is collected. There is more information in our privacy policy and a specific section on our approach to education at yoyogames.com/legal/privacy. We're also approved for use by educationframework.com. As a thank you for attending our webinar and making it to the end, you are eligible to receive a free teacher license. Chrissy will send you a link, or click on the button when we send you the slides for a step-by-step instructions. Any questions?
Hi, Stuart. One of the questions is, can the seats also be used for after-school activities?
Yes, yeah. I mean, the seats basically, there's no time restriction on the seats. So if you're having after-school clubs, then you can, yes, sure, you can use them for those.
And I think we definitely covered this, but as a teacher, the support materials available to help me get started, that would be directly from the GameMaker resources page with all those tutorials
yes,
that you went through, correct?
Definitely, yeah. There are materials that are free from our website, and also if you go through the slide deck, you'll see that there's links out to YouTube and content that you can get on YouTube for different video tutorials as well that extend what we've got as well in some cases. But yeah, we have free educator materials from our site.
Great. And then this looks like the last question, but how can students download GameMaker without creating an account?
Right. So basically, we have a download option on the education page on the website, so students can download the software there, and then obviously the seat manager will be able to give them the details to log on.
I think that looks like the end of the questions that we have.
Okay. Okay. If that's all the questions.
Yeah, do you have?
I'll just.
Thank you.
That's cool.
Thank you so much, Stuart. And thank you everyone for joining us today. If you have any questions, feel free to email me on the email that I send to you, or you can always reach out to info@studica.com and we will answer those questions for you. And just keep an eye out for that email and you'll have the link so you can request a free trial. So thank you everyone and have a great day.